What's going on, Godzirra Nation? This is Arghgodzirra. We are back with another round of AFL tips and predictions from myself this week, looking ahead to round 6. But before we do that, it is time to have a look at the week that was. Look at our tips back at round 5. And I didn't do too bad. I actually tipped 8 tips this week, or last week. The Collingwood-Essendon game was the only game I got wrong. But there was somebody who tipped 9, ladies and gentlemen. El Snako, Damien King, managed to tip a perfect round. Congratulations to you, sir. In doing so, you have overtaken the lead. And with the 8 that I tipped, I've jumped up to 4th. I think I was like 11th or 9th or something like that heading into this round, so I've jumped a fair bit. So El Snako's leading the pack. Heath in 2nd, Jason in 3rd, myself in 4th, Alex in 5th, Benjamin in 6th, Taj in 7th, Jude in 8th, Michael in 9th, and Marcus in 10th. And then after that, we have Sean, Wade, Dominic, Dylan, Con, Alec, Mark, Brandon, Tristan, Kamal, Troy, Oliver, Zach, Jake, Flynn, Bo, David, and Corey. And ladies and gentlemen, because round 5 has come to an end, that's it. That's the lockout. If you join after this, unfortunately, you will not be eligible to win any prizes at season's end. But if that being said, if you still want to join in on the competition for the sake of it, you're more than welcome to. And you can do so by following this link right here. It's linked in the description down below as well. 28 people this year. By far the most amount of people I've had ever in a tipping comp. I've been doing it for about, 3 years now. Very happy with the outcome this year. Still very small in number compared to some, but I am so appreciative for the 27 people that have jumped on board with myself this year. However, that's the week that was. It's now time to have a look at the week that will be. Round 6, and boy have we got some shit shaking up, because we don't have any teams in Victoria currently. With the COVID lockdown, we're going into lockdown for another 6 weeks. How fun's that? But now we've got clubs that are hubbing. People are making some pretty underhanded jabs at Bashar Hooley and Shane Edwards from Richmond for not making the trip due to their personal commitments. Let's get one thing straight. Family first, ladies and gentlemen. Always. And I commend those boys, even though I feel we're going to miss them out on the field. They've got to do what they've got to do. They've got to stick by their partners, and they've got to look after them babies, ladies and gentlemen. But time to get tipping underway. Thursday night, SCG, Geelong and Brisbane. Neutral territory for both teams. Geelong had a good win against the Gold Coast last week. Brisbane doing some Brisbane-like things against Port Adelaide. And I'm tipping Brisbane. Why? I feel Brisbane have been more impressive to watch this year. Last week, toppling Port Adelaide like they did. I'm certain they beat Port Adelaide last week. Am I thinking of the correct round? Yes, I was. They comfortably beat Port Adelaide last week. And I think with that being said and done, considering Port Adelaide's on top of the ladder and has been the torchbearer, some have been saying, Brisbane, for me, are going to get it done by 28 points. 28. I said 28. There we go. 28 points. Friday night, Collingwood, Hawthorn. Giants Stadium. Again, neutral ground. And again, a game that I feel could be 50-50. I don't know how to go here. Collingwood is the easy choice. Hawthorn have room for an upset. It's a real flip of the dice here, because Collingwood last week, they were pretty deplorable against Essendon. No steel side bottom in their midfield really opened up a huge gap. Whereas Hawthorn, I feel, even though they got beaten pretty convincingly around the ground, they didn't look too bad. Look, I'm going to go Collingwood here, purely based off of the form of Collingwood compared to Hawthorn. Collingwood have only had that one down game last week. Apart from that, they've been pretty impressive throughout. So I'm going to stick with that. Hopefully they can get over the line for me. Saturday, kicks off at Metricon. Fremantle, St Kilda. I'm backing St Kilda. St Kilda are quite comfortably going to finish in the top 8 this year. I feel, after seeing how they've played and what they've been able to dish up, they're finals bound. Could be an early call, but I feel finals in 2020 is on the cards for St Kilda, and they're going to get a convincing win against Fremantle this weekend in order to propel that finals run. Sitting in the top 4 at the moment as well, pretty impressive. If you had told me 6 rounds deep this year St Kilda would be in the top 4, I would have told you were dreaming. But good on them. The kids are playing great football. Gabba, West Coast Adelaide. Let's not even bother about talking about this game. West Coast quite comfortably. Giant Stadium, Melbourne, Gold Coast. Now, here's a flip of the dice here, because majority of the people have gone the Gold Coast, but I feel Melbourne can get the win here. The way they played against Richmond in the final quarter, now bear in mind Richmond didn't have Cochin, Nankervis or Prestia out on the ground, down to 1 rotation. But once they started getting the ball moving, they got it moving well. The Gold Coast, I don't know whether they're going to miss Matty Roel in the middle, as much as I hate seeing that kid go down last week in injury. Because even without him, they managed to hold on to Geelong. I mean, they got beaten in the end, but they still put on an impressive showing. Oh, do Melbourne notch up their second win, or do the Gold Coast continue pushing for a finals berth? I'm going to go Melbourne. I think this is the week Melbourne bounce back. I hope I'm right. Essendon, North Melbourne, Metricon. I'm going to go Essendon. Essendon arguably last week played the best game of football they have played in a few years, without a shadow of a doubt. A lot of players are playing into form. Dylan Shield, I reckon, could be a sneaky smoky for the Brownlow medal. There was a lot to like about Essendon last week, as much as it pains me to say it. And I think they'll get the job done quite convincingly against North Melbourne this week. Sunday, Metricon. Metricon seeing a lot of action this weekend. Port Adelaide, GWS. I'm going to go GWS. I feel Port Adelaide had an early run and sat on top of the ladder purely based on the teams they played. They played the bottom tier teams. And not saying West Coast is a bottom tier team, but in the grand design of how this season has played out so far, that's just where West Coast have been situated. Whereas I feel Giants have played into a bit of form, and it was exposed last week that when Port Adelaide play a contender, they kind of buckle. And I think that buckling could happen again this week against GWS. I loved what GWS did last week against Hawthorn, vastly more than what I've seen Port Adelaide do all year this year. So I'm going to lock in the Giants. The Gabba, Richmond, Sydney. I'm backing Richmond. I think we finally played ourselves into form. Jake Arts, the kid I call Picasso. We've taken some other young cubs on the plane over as well, so it's going to be good to expose some youth to the game. I think the Richmond train is starting to build up a little bit of momentum. We were definitely back in town last week, and I'm hoping we can run with that momentum moving forward, and we can finally push for the finals berth that we should outright be playing, because I know we can play better football than what we have been, without a shadow of a doubt. But Richmond for me. Final game of the weekend, I'm locking in the Bulldogs. That's not knocking Carlton. I just think the Bulldogs are finally starting to find their feet as well. Last couple of games have been pretty convincing from the Doggies. Carlton put on a good show against St Kilda. I actually thought they did pretty well, considering they were 40-something points down at one point. They managed to get it back to 3 goals. But I think the Dogs quite convincingly are going to get it done here. So, recap: Brisbane, Collingwood, St Kilda, Eagles, Melbourne, Essendon, GWS, Richmond, and the Bulldogs. Let me know in the comment section down below, like we have been the last couple of weeks, who your certainty is and who your upset of the round is going to be. For me, I think it's quite plainly obvious here. Eagles versus Adelaide is the certainty. 100%. If there was going to be an upset for this week, it'd be Fremantle defeating St Kilda. I feel that's the biggest upset out of all the games listed here. Carlton versus the Bulldogs isn't much of an upset because we've seen it before, but given the run, St Kilda dropping the ball to Fremantle, especially where they're both situated on the ladder this year, that's my upset. But that's it for another tipping video. Thank you for joining me. I hope your team goes well this week. I hope your tips go well in your favour this week as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.